Good afternoon, New Independence Network. It is Monday, the 14th of November. Only 67 days until Barack Hussein Obama is out of our White House forever. Hurrah, hurrah. Everybody should be very happy. 67 days. Don't think for a second, though, that in those 67 days, Hussein will not try to implement a ton of his agenda. Not that it's going to make a difference, because in the past, when a president would implement their agenda, write executive orders, create laws, or do whatever they did, most of your presidents would abide by the previous executive order. It was a political thing. It was a thing, this gentlemanly handoff between powers that is the reason why, really one of the reasons why Trump has been elected, because there's such bureaucracy and there's so much backroom dealing and establishmentarianism in the government that if one president does something, it seems to be indignant or improper to undo what the other president has done. Believe me, when it comes to dignity of the office, the only people that truly respect it are Republicans. The only ones. At least the rhinos, George H.W. Bush, George Bush, Ronald Reagan, pure conservative, he respected the office and did not say much about Jimmy Carter, if anything at all. Not Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, if anything at all, after he was out of office. But at the same time, he was also suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and it was a different time. Now it is far more volatile, and the divisions have grown wider and wider, and the Democrats started that. And all these people will say, Republicans have been so much animosity, and they've been so divisive. And they cry, and these media liberal DNC propagandists will gnash their teeth and whine about how divisive it is, how terrible it's been. The Republicans are so divisive. It's so damaging to our fabric of our nation. Guys, guess where that started? That started under Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton was president, the lines of division grew. They were doing it under Reagan, but again, it was a different time. It started under Clinton, but really exacerbated once Bush became president and social media came into the fray, and they were very, very upset, especially because Bush won the White House from Al Gore. So they couldn't handle the loss, because liberals, Democrats cannot handle losing. They blame everybody else but themselves. They don't blame their own incompetence. They don't blame the fault of their poor plans or poor ideals. They don't blame their process. They don't blame their strategy. They blame Republicans and everybody else. God forbid. So when Gore lost, they were blaming Bush. They were blaming the Supreme Court. They were blaming everything but themselves. And the division grew rapidly. Started under Clinton. They planted the seeds because that's what they want to do. The Alinskyeites, like Hillary Clinton and Bill, they love to stir up problems. They cause chaos. That's their whole objective. So they started. But once Bush hit, that just took the cap off the dam there. It went nuts. It flooded with insanity. And now you have a huge division, and the thing's going to be it's very different now. The White House it's very different. Yes, they're having the peaceful transition of power, but did you notice that when Donald Trump showed up to the White House, there was no photo op? There was no greeting at the gate of the White House photo op that they've done for years, for presidencies long back. He showed up to the White House last time when Obama won in 2008. Barack and Michelle showed up, and George Bush and Laura met him out front. They shook hands, exchanged gifts. It was very cordial. Did we see that this year? No. I wonder why. Well, a sense that something is different. Now, of course, they're bitter, so the DNC media is not going to report that because they don't want to, and the White House didn't want that to be reported. Then Trump meets with Obama, and it was an hour and a half. It was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting, but it was an hour and a half. And most likely, we saw the 60 Minutes interview on DNCBS last night. Anybody who saw that, they talked a lot about policy. Trump said they talked a lot about policy. He did not divulge what they spoke about. But I have a sneaking suspicion Obama, as arrogant as he is, though Trump says he was cordial, I think Trump was trying to be professional about it. And I think Obama was like, we did a lot of great things with Obamacare, and you can't get rid of it. You just can't do it. And Obama tried to use his professorial authoritarianism over Trump, which is not going to work. And Trump probably extended him platitudes, because in business, that's kind of what you do in a lot of cases. You have somebody who's a differing opinion of yours. You say, and you know you're in the power position, and you say, okay, whatever you say, you got it. Well, we got a couple things we got to fix, but there is problems with it. But yes, I understand what you're saying. I understand. And then once it's over, you say, okay, fine. Look, this clown's out. This guy's an idiot. Forget it. Placate the guy. Humor him. Because once Obama's gone, he really has no power anymore. I mean, he's going to have a voice. Believe me. I said this before in a previous broadcast, but he's staying in Washington for a reason. He's not staying just because his daughter is in high school. Give me a break. Give me a break. Barack Obama is going to change the way it's been handled. Bush kept his mouth shut. Let me step back. It's when Bush left office, he kept his mouth shut because there is a certain propriety. There's a etiquette to the presidency. When you are an ex-president, you do not criticize the sitting president. It's kind of like a little fraternity of presidents there. This is not going to happen under Barack Obama. This is where everything's going to flip. It's totally going to change. The game is very different now. It has been changing, and with the election of Trump, we have changed that tremendously. Now you have an outsider who is totally against all establishmentarianism, which is wonderful. And Barack Obama is not going to allow Trump to do anything without opening his mouth. You mark my words. The minute Trump does anything, if he goes after Obamacare, you're going to have the media flocking to Barack Obama. What do you think? What do you think? To get his opinion. What do you think, Barack? Oh, I don't approve of that. I think it's improper. And he's, it's going to be the typical mantra of the left, and he's going to propagandize that and do what he has to do. And he's never going away. He's not. And like I said, the Clinton dynasty is pretty much dead. But Barack Obama is going to try to maintain the dynasty because now there's talk about people want Michelle Obama to run for Senate in her vast amount of qualifications, tending garden outside the White House because, she's done so much in dancing for people and telling people how to do push-ups. Because doing push-ups on Ellen is a prerequisite. Well, if you think about it, Michelle Obama has absolutely no experience to be the president of the United States, and neither did Barack Obama, so it works out perfectly. And that's the funny part. All these people complain about Donald Trump not having experience. He's unqualified. You hear that a lot. He's unqualified to be president. He was only a CEO. And the idiots out there, the liberals, he was only a CEO of a company. Do you even know what a CEO of a company has to do on a daily basis? A CEO stands for Chief Executive Officer. That is what the president is, an executive officer. Yes, it's a far more broad scale than running a company. But when you have 500 businesses worldwide, like Donald Trump has, when you run a multi-billion-dollar company like Donald Trump does, when you manage tens of thousands of people and create jobs for them, like Donald Trump has, you have experience in managing. You have experience in budgeting, in economics, in negotiation. That's all part of what an American president does. You know, there were other presidents who weren't politicians before, and that's the prerequisite for these liberals. Oh, he wasn't a politician before. Barack Obama was a politician. For 180 days, Barack Obama was a senator of the United States. Now remember, he backed into his state senatorial position in Chicago only because of dirty tricks, and they were able to destroy the reputations of the other candidates against him, like that Ryan, whose wife, Jerry Ryan, who was 7 of 9 on Star Trek, turned around and said he was, he like sexual fetishes or some ridiculous thing. And that came out, and typical establishment Republican cowardice, he backed out. Oh no, there's something terrible said about me. I can't defend myself. I must back out. That is the cowardice that we don't need. When they went after Trump, he fought against it. But Barack Obama, he used dirty tricks, his campaign. And they got Ryan scared. He bailed out. I mean, every single time he won anything, it was because his opponent backed out. That was in Chicago. That was all dirty tricks. So Obama didn't earn anything. He backed into everything. Then he became a U.S. senator. All right? 180 days. 180 days. And in that 180 days, as a senator, he voted present the majority of the time, which basically means he didn't vote yay or nay, because he didn't want to have anything negative on his record to show what his stance was. And he was campaigning most of the time. I mean, look at the instant ascendancy of Obama. It was completely crafted from the beginning. The only reason the Democrats made him ascend, and that was supposed to be Hillary Clinton's time. She was a rightful heir in 2008. She was groomed for it. But they wanted Obama. Why? Simple. First, black president. That's it, kids. That has been the motivation behind Obama's candidacy for his entire 8 years. The Republicans would never try to impeach him for violating the Constitution and breaking his oath of office because they were afraid of being called racist. The Republicans would never go after him, and McCain started it. We're not going to criticize Barack Obama because of his race. We can't do that. We don't want to be considered racist. We're not going to say anything about him being a possible Muslim. We're not going to do anything. His Muslim past. We're not going to talk about that. Why? Because they were afraid. Because they'll allow the Democrats to be as filthy and dirty and underhanded as possible and destroy their character, the character of Republicans and any candidate, and their families. But the Republicans will never fight back. Well, we don't want to lower ourselves to their level. You're actually equating to the... Here, let's explain this in a term of war. As a veteran, I always like to look at things in terms of combat and planning. If you're in combat and the enemy has nukes and they throw a nuke at you, are you going to just sit there and throw a couple howitzer shells at them? Are you going to fire some 7.62 millimeter rounds downrange off of your M60 machine gun or 246? Are you going to just shoot them, throw a grenade or two? Let's just drop a couple bunker buster bombs on them. They just hit us with the nukes, sir. Well, I know, but it's just, it wouldn't be proper because the public opinion of the world would turn against us. And we don't want to be accused of being too violent. It's war. If they throw nukes, you throw nukes. If they throw a firebomb, you throw a firebomb, and a bigger one. That's the only way to handle it. And with the Democrats, the only way to beat them is to hit them where it hurts. And we did that this election. And look at the result. Trump didn't back down. He didn't stop. He didn't pause and go, oh, I got to get out. Because the minute they played that Billy Bush tape from Access Hollywood, The minute they played that, everyone's like, oh, he's starting now. He's got to back out, because they're thinking of Trump as one of the establishment clowns who ran before him, who cowered, and who were cowards, were afraid to fight back. Look, I like George W. Bush. I don't respect him much because he didn't back Trump. He didn't back the Republican candidate. Sour grapes, because his family legacy, his milquetoast brother Jeb, failed. Well, guess what? Your brother sucked, George. And the Bush family name has kind of been tarnished because you allowed it to be tarnished. You allowed the Republican or the Democrats and the DNC media to say whatever they wanted about you during your terms in office, especially the last 2 years. They besmirched your name over and over and over again. And George W. Bush, you did not fight back one iota. And what did that do for you? What did that do? Where did that get you? Well, history's going to judge it. History's going to judge it. History's going to judge my performance. Doesn't matter. The here and now is how we win. 30, 40 years from now, you'll be dead. So your reputation won't matter. And the liberals control information. They write the textbooks. These liberals that you placated with the No Child Left Behind Act in schools, you reached across the aisle to Teddy Kennedy in an outgoing sense of loyalty. I don't even know. Respect for this clown, this murderer. Yes, Mary Jo Kopechne. Go look it up. This guy who left a woman to drown in a Chappaquiddick and hid. You backed this clown to create the No Child Left Behind Act, which is a disaster. I know somebody personally whose nephew was in school. He had like a 1.7 grade point average. 1.7! That's terrible. That's below a D. That's an F average. And instead of making him stay in school, the school said, oh, well, if you want to leave, you can just leave. We'll just graduate you. Like, he's not qualified to be out in the real world. He doesn't have any education. He hasn't passed his classes. He hasn't shown aptitude. But because of the No Child Left Behind Act, they push people through. Why? To falsely inflate graduation rates, so it looks like the teachers' unions are doing their jobs. And it all goes back to what? Teachers' unions are Democrats. They donate to Democrats. As long as teachers are doing their jobs, the schools keep getting funding. The schools look like they're doing their jobs. They pass the litmus test based on numbers. And the money that the salaries these teachers get, they donate a portion of that through union dues to the unions, who then donate that to who? Democrats. So Bush, he cowered to the Democrats, who didn't care. They didn't care one iota, pardon me. Didn't care one iota about him. And they wrecked him. And he didn't fight back at all. And it damaged his reputation. So when Jeb Bush and George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush all cry and complain and whimper and whine about Donald Trump and Jeb not winning, point the finger at yourself, especially at George W., who allowed these people to run roughshod over him. It's very simple. If you're going to get attacked, attack back. Don't sit there and just take it, because that's what Democrats expect you to do. And when Billy Bush came out and said those things, Trump didn't take it. He said, don't hell with it. Everything they said, Trump came back at him. So you have a situation now where they're going to keep attacking. They're never going to stop. All these calls for unity, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. All these calls for unity will never bring unity. They're all false. The Democrats don't care. And it's a very different game now. It's a very different game. So Bush didn't criticize Obama at all. Obama's not going to do that. Do you think for a second that Barack Hussein Obama is going to sit idly by and allow Donald Trump to do what he wants to do? Do you think for a second he will? No. Sorry, that noise back there was one of these stupid pop-in video things on the web. Gotta love these little commercials they throw in there. I have a story called up here that we got to talk about in a little bit, but back to the point. Barack Obama will never sit idly by and allow this to happen. He will be in front of the cameras as often as possible, criticizing the sitting president. It's going to change the whole game. Trump's changed it already. The Democrats started it. Trump's just carrying it on. Trump's just carrying it forward. And he's bringing the battle to them, as it should be. Thank God for WikiLeaks. Thank God for Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. Thank God for people like Sean Hannity who attack and have kept attacking. He's been doing it for years. Rush has been attacking for years. Rush Limbaugh. I respect that. I lost respect for Glenn Beck. He's a coward. He backed Hillary Clinton because Glenn Beck is a mealy mouth. He couldn't handle the fact that his guy lost. Life sucks there, Glenn. And your failing Blaze network. So, everything's going to be very different now. And what they're doing with Trump is they're trying to delegitimize his presidency. They're trying to say that he's unqualified. He's the CEO of a company, but he's unqualified. No, let's go back and first off, when they say he never held an elected office. Remember what I said? He never held an elected office, right? That was a prerequisite, even though Barack Obama was a senator for only 180 days. Trump is unqualified because he never held an elected office. What presidents did not hold elected office before they became presidents? Well, Ulysses S. Grant did not. Zachary Taylor did not. Herbert Hoover did not. He's not a great example. Dwight D. Eisenhower did not. Believe it or not, actually, true history, what Herbert Hoover was doing was better than the New Deal. It's just that there was implementation issues. We'll talk more about that later. But he could have done more for the economy if he would have done it the right way. It's just he pretty much he kind of caught in a bad place. It wasn't really his fault that it happened. It just is what it is. But Dwight D. Eisenhower, he saw the rebuilding of the country after World War II. A huge resurgence in the 50s. It was phenomenal. These are all people who didn't have elected office before. Wait a minute. Who else didn't have elected office before? What president was not elected or was not a political candidate or hold a political office before he was elected president? Who was that? Oh, that would be George Washington. Yeah, just George Washington. I mean, but you don't have to have. Well, then they say, what? Well, they were in the military. Wait, whoa. You say, liberals, that the military career doesn't matter. Obama wasn't in the military. Bill Clinton wasn't in the military. Oh, it mattered when George W. Bush, but George W. Bush was National Guard. But then, of course, they have to try to besmirch him there. He was avoiding duty. He was AWOL. No. When you're a National Guard, you just don't sometimes report. It's a long story. But no, we found out that was most of it falsified anyway. Thank you to DNCBS and Dan Rather. No, they try to say that military doesn't matter until they can use it to their advantage, because Al Gore kept touting, I was in the military. You were a journalist, Al. You were a journalist. You didn't do anything. Yeah, Grant just served. Congrats, but don't pretend like you were some kind of a seasoned vet. Then John Kerry stands on the stage at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. John Frankenstein Kerry. John F. Kerry reporting for duty. And he puts up a friggin' salute. What a disgrace. Oh! Ha! On John F. Kerry. Hey, John Frankenstein Kerry went down to Antarctica. Did you hear that news? John Kerry went to Antarctica just recently. He went down there to prove that global warming really exists, to prove that the ice caps are melting. Well, first things first, John Kerry's expedition to Antarctica expended more carbon fuel, a larger carbon footprint than a person would emit in 1 year. Correct. In 1 day, his expedition put out more carbon emissions than an average person would put out in 1 year. But I was curious about that. He's going down to Antarctica, but didn't Al Gore say by 2015 that the ice caps would be completely melted and the coasts would be flooded? Didn't he say that? I remember him saying that. It was like 20 years before, back in 1995, I believe it was. In 20 years, the ice caps will melt and the world's going to be destroyed. It's going to be flooded out. New York will be underwater. So I'm very concerned, John Kerry going to Antarctica. I mean, it's not supposed to be there, right? There shouldn't be an Antarctica to go to, according to Al Gore. So John Kerry, maybe he's going to be on a pontoon boat cruising across Antarctica. Oh, what? You mean it's there? It actually still exists? Wait a minute. How can it be? Anyway, so the qualifications for Trump. Back to the qualifications on Trump. Everybody complains about that. He's just a CEO. He's just a CEO. He didn't have military service. We had discussed that. Military service only matters to Democrats when it's their own candidate. It only matters to them if their candidate has military service. If their candidate doesn't have military service, then they say, oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. So we're going to go with it doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It'd be nice, but leadership is leadership. And Trump as a CEO is a leader. Leaders know how to manage people. Officers in the military are basically CEOs. They really are. Different level managers. The higher generals are CEOs. They have to handle multi-million-dollar budgets. They have to handle tens of thousands of people under their command. They have to handle logistics, negotiation. I mean, they're politicians in the grand scheme of things. Well, that's what Trump does. You can argue all you want, but the facts are the facts. It's not that hard to do this stuff. It's not easy. But to be a president, Obama proved that. Obama used the presidency as an affirmative action on-the-job training. You saw how that turned out. Well, this is different. Trump has been a businessman for, 20, 30 years? 30 years? More than that? He's had a lot of success. But here's an interesting thing. Trump is just a CEO. Okay? Donald Trump is just a CEO. If Donald Trump is disqualified for being just a CEO, would the Democrats, would the liberals say the same thing if Mark Zuckerberg or Schmidt from Google, or if Steve Jobs were alive, Steve Jobs or Mark Cuban stepped up to be president of the United States? If they were elected, would the Democrats say the same thing, that they're unqualified because they're only CEOs? Absolutely not. Hypocrisy. Libocracy at its best. That's how it is. So that's where we stand. Now, Donald Trump, as we know, has an issue with China. And as do most of us, as do I. China they have too much control over the American economy. There's too many businesses that have products made in China. Yes, we get them cheaper in China. But if we would actually make them here and had done it all along, things would have been probably a lot easier. They may be a little more expensive, but really, it would drive down price because there would be more competition in the United States. It's a long, long story, and a more deep explanation. And I don't really have time to do all that. But here's a story from DNC-NBC, or CNBC, DNC. I like to call it MBDNC. So let's call it CNBDNC. Whew. China fires its first warning shot. Warning, iPhone sales will suffer if Trump starts a trade war. Says Apple, this is from today. Apple, iPhones, and other U.S. goods could suffer sales hit in China if President-elect Trump goes through with his naive, quote-unquote naive plan of slapping a large import tariff on Chinese products. So the Chinese are threatening a lot of problems with iPhone sales and different products coming into this country. Well, that's a problem. If China, see, this is why Trump is right. Trump hasn't even, he just made the threat of it during his campaign, but he's not even sworn in yet. And the Chinese have already fired the first shot. They're using their economic stance to try to strong-arm the United States and threaten us. Trump is right. That quickly. China has shown that they want to be an economic enemy of the United States. That quickly. There you go. The economic war has started and China fired the first shot. Oh, sorry, guys. Now you've shown your true colors. You don't want to actually work with the United States. You want to hold the United States hostage. That's why they're trying to buy a large portion of Hollywood. That's why the Chinese are buying a ton of businesses in this country. They're trying to put their footprint on the United States, and they're doing so. So we need to take that back and stop their expansion. So, just a little something, but it shows, who could handle that the best? Who would handle that the best? Well, China wouldn't have fired the shot if Trump didn't. But in a matter, as long as you placate the Chinese are like economic terrorists. As long as you placate the terrorists, I mean, terrorists are going to attack you anyway. But as long as you placate the terrorists and you don't attack back and you run away, they'll be less inclined to attack you if you cater to them. But to cater to the terrorists, the Islamic terrorists, you have to implement Sharia law, let them build mosques everywhere, abide by their rules. Well, China's doing the same thing with economics. As long as you don't implement tariffs, as long as you let them buy whatever they want to buy, as long as you let them make all the products, as many products as possible cheaply, cheap labor, and poor quality, stuff that breaks in 2 seconds, everything's fine. And they won't attack you. But eventually they will. And that's why these terrorists and the Chinese love Democrats. Because the Democrats cave in all the time. They won't fight back. They'll just cater. They'll keep catering to people over and over and over again. But Donald Trump won't do that. And that makes a big difference. That's why it's important to have a CEO, someone like Trump, who has some courage, who isn't beholden to special interests and lobbyists, to be president of the United States. He understands business, folks. He has top negotiators who negotiate multi-billion-dollar deals, and he is one himself. But he has people who understand how things work. The Democrats, any Democrat or Republican, they don't know business. They really don't understand business. They understand politics. Now, politics and business are similar, but not the same. To understand business, you have to understand how to deal with people on a different level, how to negotiate to get your way. You can't just strong-arm a policy. Politicians negotiate, but they negotiate in a totally different method or a different manner. They negotiate based on what we can do for each other as opposed to what we can do for the country. CEOs, business people understand how business runs. Understand that there's not a never-ending source of money. I mean, think about this. Trump spent a very low amount of money in his campaign. He rewrote the rules. And he only spent, per voter, $5 per voter. That's all it cost him, $5 per voter. If you look at Jeb Bush during during the nomination or the primaries, he spent something like $10,000 or some ridiculous number per voter. I mean, unbelievable how much he spent per voter. Politicians will spend billions and billions of dollars. Trump didn't do that. It was a tremendous success. This is how you run a campaign. This is smart. If he runs a campaign, if he runs the country, which he will, with as much efficiency and business savvy as he ran his campaign, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. The benefits of having a CEO are huge. Liberals will never accept the fact. They're trying to find everything they possibly can to delegitimize Trump. But it's not going to happen. It's over. He won. It's done. Cry and complain and protest all you want. Take your money from George Soros to go out there and protest. It's done. Donald Trump won. Suck it up. Go cry in your Cheerios. Go stand in the corner. But wherever you do, don't stand near us because we're moving forward. You're on the wrong side of history. Okay. New Independence Network. That's our update for today. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.